In this animation, I'm going to show you the working of the process plant. When I'm starting the input, you can see the valve on and pump is on and the level keeps increasing. When it reaches the half level, the valve switches to the second valve and the pump is still on. Now the pump and valve has been gone. Now you can see the mixer and heater will be on. The mixer will be working for 10 seconds. And when the temperature switch is on, you can see I'm going to turn it on manually. You can see the heater turns off and the valve 3 turns on. That means the draining valve. You can see the valve will be, the level will be drained up to 0. So that's it. And you can see the level switches like LS1, LS2, LS3 over here. In this video, we can go for the Grapset. So I'm deleting my previous ladder POU. By deleting this, I have to add a new Grapset POU from here. So this is my Grapset programming window. So getting the initialization, I have to double tap here. By double tapping here, we will be getting the first step. In this Grapset, you have to keep in mind one thing is the step, another one is the transition. The step means what to happen, and the transition means when or in which condition the next step will be executed. So the step 1, I name it as initialize. So this will be the step 1, means that is the initialize. Next, by initializing, have to make two things on. In this case, these are the inputs and these are the outputs for the PLC program. You can see I0 for start, 1 for LS1, 2 for LS2, 3 for LS3 and I04 for the temperature switch. And you can see the pump will be the first output and valve 1 and valve 2. You can see here, these are my valve 1 and valve 2. These are the output 1 and output 2 respectively. And you can see the heater and mixer are the 3 and 4 outputs, and the output 5 will be the valve 3. So this is my configuration. In this picture, I'm going to show you the steps and the transitions required for the Grapset programming. The first step is to initialize, that is the start button. Okay, that is the first step. Okay, by doing that step, we have two things to execute. One is the pump has to be on and the valve 1 has to be on. These are the two things, and when it reaches the level sensor 2 or the half level, it reaches first level sensor 1, then level sensor 2, it reaches the half level, that valve 1 should be switched to valve 2. So that should be off and the valve 2 should be on. Till this time the pump remains on. Okay, after reaching the level up to level sensor 3, you can see the pump and the valve 2 should be off. That is the next step. These are the transition makers. During the level switch 1, 2, 3, that will be making the new transitions. While it reaches the full length or the full level, you can see that the heater and the mixer should be working starting simultaneously, and the mixer should be working for 10 seconds and the heater will be working. It will be the heater working, or the heater will be depending upon the temperature switch. When the temperature switch is on, the heater should be gone off. During that time, you can see the valve 3 will be on. Okay, when the heater is off, the valve 3 will be on for the outlet, or that will be the level will be draining to the point. During that time, you can see the level sensor 3 will be off, 2 will be off, and when it reaches to the level sensor 1, the valve will be closed. So this is my sequence. So let's go to do the transition and also the executions in the Grapset. You can see this will be my application, and when I am pressing the start button, this is the first transition. When I am making the first transition, two things will be on. One is the valve 1, another one is a pump. So these are the two things. So I can make two things right here. 1, 2. These are the two things. One is pump, another one is valve 1. So these are the two steps that should be executed in the single transition. the transition is the on button. So I can make the on button as the transition from here for pump and the valve also. With this transition or the switch on, I have to turn on the pump and the valve itself. So I can name it as the transition one as switch. So this is my transition, pump and valve. When the next process I am going to show you, when the switch is on, the valve on and the pump is on, the water keeps pumping and it reaches the half level. When level sensor 1 is on, then it reaches the level sensor 2. That means the half level. When it reaches the half level up to here, then one thing should be happen. Valve 1 should go off and valve 2 should be on. So because the valve should be switching to the valve 2, and the pump keeps working. There is nothing happening to the pump. So next I'm going to add the valve 2. So this will be my valve 2. At the transition means that is the LS2. It reaches the level sensor 2, the transition should happen. So it goes with the LS2, the valve 2 should be on. These are the two things. And when it reaches the level sensor 3, or you can see when it reaches the top level, and the level sensor 3 is reached, or the top level is reached, the pump and valve should be off. So the pump and valve should be off. Valve 2 and pump will be off. So that will be my current transition. And you can see when it is turns off, the heater and the mixer should be start working. So I just need two more things. One is the heater, another one is the mixer. So I am making these things. This step will be the mixer, and here comes with the heater. So the mixer and heater has been starting with valve 3 or the level switch 3. So I'm drawing it like this and connecting the transition with this. This transition means the level switch 3, LS3. This is my transition. When level switch is on, the pump and valve 2 should be off, and the mixer and the heater should be turned on. So the mixer and the heater should be turned on at the same time. And the very next thing I'm going to show you, when the temperature switch is on. When the temperature switch is on, the heater should go off. After that, the valve 3 should be on. That is my next step. That is the valve 3. You can see when it is reaching the top point, when the temperature switch is on, the valve 3 should be on. This mixer will be working for 10 seconds. That I can make a timer for that. So we can focus on the valve 3. So I can put it as that, name it as the valve 3. So this will be my valve 3. When the mixer turns off, when the mixer turns off, the heater should be, and when the temperature switch is off, that valve 3 should be working. So like this. So if you are using like this before the transition, we cannot do it properly. So I'm making this transition from here like this. In this transition, you can see you can make it, merge it as a one single transition. That will be the, not the level switch, that will be the temperature switch. TSW, that is the temperature switch. When the temperature switch is on, the valve 3 should be working. After a couple of times, the mixer should be turned off. So that's it. That's the temperature switch action, and that will be working after the timer itself. So this is the valve 3. When the valve 3 is going to turn off, when the level reaches the level bottom level, or the level switch turns off, and the level switch 3 turns off first, 2 turns off second, then goes to the level switch 1, the valve 3 should be turned off. That is the working condition. So the valve 3 should be turned off, and we can go back to the previous position with the transition like this. from the last position I can go to the initialization position like this. So you can see this is the last transition. Okay, this is the last transition. Sorry, I can make the last transition and I'm going to name it as production or the process complete. So I'm going to name it as complete. So these are my things and I'm going to program it individually. First initialize, I'm going to leave it by that. I'm not doing anything. First thing is the switch. When the switch is on, these two things should be working. So I'm going to the switch first, double tap on that and deleting the open instruction, and I'm going to put an input. So this is my input and I'm going to show you the address. This will be the I0.0 will be the start address or the starting for the switch. So I0.0 I'm going to name it as I0.0. So this will be my initial condition for the first transition, that is the switch. You can see that, and you can go to the Grapset, click here. So that will be showing in a gray color, that means that is programmed. And I just need my pump and the valve 1 when the switch is on, and I'm going to turn the pump on with the switch. So I have to double click on the green area. So you'll be getting a new window, that is the pump. So I can make a ladder for the pump. So this will be the switch and this will be the pump address. The switch address I'm naming it as I0.0 just like before. And you can see the first output, which is the pump, which is the Q0.0. So I can make it as Q0.0 as my output, and I'm returning to the Grapset. My pump will be on and the valve 1 should be on. For the same condition, I'm adding a new thing, input and output same, I0.0, and the output address will be, the valve 1 output address will be, you can see the valve 1 is Q0.1. So naming it as Q0.1. Getting back, and when the LS2 is on, we have to see that should be the valve 1 should be switching to valve 2. So I can program the LS2 from here. When the LS2 is on, the valve 1 should be off. So I can put an NC contact here in the name of LS2. You can see the LS2 address is I0.2. So %I0.2 is my LS2 address. So that will be stopping the valve 1, and the same thing you have to give to the LS2 transition. So just deleting this and placing an NO contact of the I0.2, that is the LS2. Back. Now these things up to here we have programmed. Then there comes the valve 3. Okay, the valve 3 I'm going to open or turn it on with the help of the LS2. When the LS2 is on, the valve 2 should be on. When the LS2 means I0.2. You can see here I0.2 is the LS2. When it is reaching the half level, the valve 2 should be on. The valve 2 I'm naming it as Q0.2. So we can name it as Q0.2. So that is my valve 2. When it reaches the LS2, that valve 1 will be switched to valve 2. And the very next thing is the LS3. When it reaches the top level, the pump should be off and the LS3 should be on. Then it goes to the mixer and the heater transition. So this is the LS3 I'm going to hit. Here comes to the LS3. So put an NO contact and you can go for the LS3, that is I0.3. So naming it as I0.3, that is the LS3, and I'm going back to the Grapset, and for stopping the pump also I have to use the LS3. So for stopping the pump with the LS3 you can place here, that is I0.3, that is LS3. So with that I can stop the pump also. With this LS3 I'm gonna stop the valve 2 also. So I can put an NC contact of the LS3, that will be I0.3. So my pump and valve should be turned off when the level has reached the topmost point, and there comes the mixer and heater. I have to turn it on. So the mixer should be turned on with LS3. So put a contact and coil. So this will be I0.3 and Q0.3, I think. Or let's check the mixer. You can see the mixer is Q0.4. Q0.4. That will be my mixer. And also the heater, that will be Q0.3. So with I0.3 I'm turning on the Q0.3. I0.3 with LS3 I'm making the mixer Q3 on. You can see here I3 LS3 with Q3, the mixer and the heater itself. So Q3 is the heater now. So let's see here, and I can go to the Grapset. You can see the mixer and heater should be turned on when the LS3 is activated, and the heater should be turned off when the temperature switch is activated. So I can put the heater here. I can use an NC contact of the temperature switch, that should be I0.4. So I0.4 is the temperature switch that will be stopping the heater. And after that the mixer should be automatically working and stopped after 10 seconds. So I have to go to the mixer and place one thing, that will be a pulse timer. So I just placed a timer here, a pulse timer TP, and that preset should be 10 and the time base should be 1 second. That's it. So I just have the pulse timer over there, mixer, and the mixer and the heater. And when the temperature switch has been activated, you can see that the temperature switch has been activated. One thing should be happened when the temperature switch, that is I0.4, when the temperature switch is activated here, when the temperature switch is activated, you can see the valve 3 should be on. I can show you when the temperature switch is activated here, the valve 3 should be on. That is used for draining. Okay, so the valve 3 should be on. So I'm going to activate the valve 3 here. So the valve 3 will be activated by the temperature switch, and also that will be deactivating with respect to the LS1. You can see the LS3 will be deactivated first, then the last one is the LS1. So that will be deactivating the valve 3, we know, alright. So we have to put the NC contact directly and name it as the I0.1, that is the LS1. The level switch 1, LS1 or the I0.1, that the draining valve will be always on when the step 7 is on, and that should be on with respect to the first level switch. So that will be using, like, using the output address as V3 for Q0.5. So that also added, and you can go to the Grapset. Now when it is getting completed, when the valve is on, and that will complete when the I0.1 is activated. You can see in this picture that draining will be completed when the I0 or the LS1 is off. When the LS1 is off, the draining will be complete, and we have to turn the valve 3 or the draining valve off, or we have to cycle the process. So I'm making it as NO contact of I0.1, that is the LS1, and it is reaching the level switch 1, or when we are activating or deactivating this thing, we can actually stop this process. So I can actually make this as an NC contact right here, I0.1 as an NC contact, and also I can go to the process and make a small change here, the valve 3. The valve 3 should be deactivated when the valve 3 will be on when the step 7 is activated, and it will be off when the I0.1 is activated. For this, I have to make the I0.1 as an NO contact. When the I0.1 is activated, only when the I0.1 is activated, we'll be getting the Q0.Y. That means only when the level switch 1, at least the bottom level is there, the valve 3 should be on. Otherwise, when it is dropping the level switch 1, means dropping the bottom level, the valve 3 should be off. So that's it. So we can actually go to the last one, that complete process. This will be the completing the process like I0.1 in the NC contact. That will be the last step or the complete set or the complete transition. That will be reaching back to the previous in-place position, and we can actually go for a runtime. So first compile. Kindly bear with me that the compiling and the simulation process will take some time. So I'm launching my simulator. So after launching this simulator, we can arrange these things, and we can actually start our controller from here. Now we're gonna run this thing, and I have to place my IO list on my left side, and you can see we are actually on the initialize step, and we have to start our control, or we have to run this thing. First thing is the transition in the switch. It is the I0.0. I'm going to turn it on. When the switch is on, you can see the pump and valve is on here, 0 and 1. You can see the Q0 and Q1 is the pump and valve. And when it reaches the LS2, the valve 1 should be switching to the valve 2. So we have to reach LS2. Before that, we have to reach the LS1. So I'm activating the LS1 from here, and nothing happens in this thing or in this step. Now I have to activate the LS2, because where the level will be starting or level will be rising from LS1 to LS2, from the bottom to top. So I'm activating the LS2 next. Here you can see the valve 1 is switched to valve 2. Valve 1 has been, the step has been switched to valve 2. You can see in this output list also, valve 1 has been switched to valve 2. Then very next thing is the LS3. This is the last transition in this pumping mechanism, LS3. I'm going to activate by pressing here. You can see the pump and valve has been turned off, and you can see the mixer and heater is on now. 3 and 4. The mixer and heater has been turned on. You can see the mixer will be turned off automatically after a couple of times. You can see the Q0.4 is turned off. The mixer has been turned off after a couple of seconds, or 10 seconds that I have used a pulse timer. And after this, the temperature switch will be activated by manually, or the process will be activating the temperature switches. So I'm activating the temperature switch. You can see the valve, the draining valve is now activated. You can see the fifth output, which is the draining valve, or the valve 3 is now activated. And when the level turns draining, you can first, I'm going to turn off my I0.4, that is the temperature switch. When the level drops, the temperature drops, and the level sensor 3, from the top it is draining like this. From the top it is draining. First I have to turn my the LS3 off, then 2 off, then on off. So I'm going to turn my 3 off. Nothing happened. It's just there, no change in the previous steps. Then the 2, then next to the 1. When I'm stopping the LS1, when the complete level has been drained, you can see now we are on the prior state, that is the pump and valve, which is started to work, and the process is going cyclically. Again I am stopping the I0.1 and 2. You can see valve is switching. You can see on the next step the mixer and heater is working, and on the next step you can see the valve is actually working. So this is the complete step for a Grapset, that will be cyclically, this process will be working. You can see in this, when all the inputs are gone, that will be switched to the initializing position, because in this complete process you can see the I0.1, the LS1 is actually deactivating this step. So that will be cyclically making the process from the beginning. So hope you understand this thing. If you have any doubts, you can comment down below. If you have If you mean anything in this video, you can subscribe and like this video, and thank you.